Playoffs? You're talking about playoffs, Paul? For the Texans, who are sub 500? They're 4-5 and they've got a backup quarterback playing? And they're about to play a division rival on the road on Sunday? Playoffs? Why playoffs? I'll tell you why. I'm Paul Gallant. This is the Gallant Says podcast.
A radio show host in Seattle called Paul Gallant.
Paul Gallant's wondering the same things a lot of people are.
You are definitely living in the hindsight world today, Paul.
Do you feel there's been a consistent theme with the interceptions?
I think every interception really has a different story.
I was just kind of curious what Paul gets to say.
Grow up, mother. Are you kidding me?
Paul Gallant, what the hell is wrong with you?
Oi! Welcome aboard the Gallant Says podcast. It is Friday. Got to get down on Friday. And Ask Gallant Anything Friday, November 14th, 2025. Live on YouTube at Paul Gallant. On Twitch at Gallant Says. X, Twitter at Gallant Says, at Gallant Says Pod. Instagram at Sports Gallant. TikTok at Gallant Says. Facebook at Paul Gallant Sports. Like, subscribe, all that stuff. You can join this show weekdays at a time to be determined, Central Time, and occasionally after major Houston sporting events. We haven't done one show at noon all week. Wanted to do today's show at 2. And guess what? We started at 2:10. Greg Todd points out, says he'll start at 11, starts at 2. We fuck around here, okay? It's Friday. I'm trying to figure out an optimal time. Next week, I think all the shows are going to be in the morning, but you know me. You can't rely on me to stick to a time. I feel bad now that Greg Todd's saying he would have started at 11 and it started at 2. I know. I'm sorry. I tried to work on a skit. It took way too long. It's available after the fact, the Gallant Says podcast, wherever you get your podcasts. Apple, Spotify, subscribe, rate, review. If you want to cut me off mid-thought, super chat me on YouTube or Twitch, and I will stop what I'm doing immediately and play this. But if you want to cut me off mid-thought, bribe me. The old-fashioned way, super chat me on YouTube. Okay, super chat me. I don't really know how the Twitch bits thing works, so just super chat me on YouTube. I'll eventually get to your comments, which you can also leave gallantsays@gmail.com or 281-836-3912. Voicemail, same line for texts, 281-836-3912. Sunday's Texans-Titans game. You want it to be a blowout. You want it to be fun. You want to be able to kick your feet up and not have to stress about being down 19 points in the fourth quarter like the Texans were this past Sunday. You would like this game to be a bloodbath, which it wasn't the last time these two teams played at NRG Stadium. It took the Texans a long time to get going at the end of the third quarter, but then they ran away with the game, much like they ran away with the game against the Jaguars in the fourth. I used to interview Pete Carroll when he was head coach of the Seattle Seahawks. We would do Monday interviews with him for about 20 to 30 minutes, and he had this saying that went viral once after a game. Can you win a game in the first quarter? No. Can you win a game in the second quarter? No. Can you win a game in the third quarter? No. Can you win a game in the fourth quarter? Yes, you can. And the Texans have been doing that, but things have not come so easily. Hopefully that changes on Sunday, which maybe is something you're skeptical about, given the Texans are going to be playing with Davis Mills under center on Sunday in Tennessee. CJ Stroud, by the way, not cleared to practice today either, and he needs to have 2 practices without any symptoms before he can get back on the field. He also needs to be cleared by an independent doctor. Jalen Petrie is in that same category. You want Texans-Titans to be a blowout. You want it to be fun. You want it to be easy. You don't want it to feel like the rock fight the last game was. Either way, there is a reason that Texans-Titans on Sunday is going to be shown to the smallest geographical area of all the noon window CBS games. This is from 506sports.com. Damn. Texans-Titans. It'll be shown in East and Southern Texas, and it won't even be shown in all of Tennessee. They're the Tennessee Titans, but it's only going to be shown around Nashville. Not going to be shown in Memphis, not going to be shown in Knoxville. I mean, that's just embarrassing. You have a team named after a state, and you are just not showing this team. I don't blame them. Is watching Cam Ward fun when you got an interim head coach and Ward's struggling and taking more sack yardage than any quarterback ever has before? He's on pace to break the record. He's on pace to be sacked as many times almost as David Carr was back in 2002. This is not primetime football. So here's what you should do. I highly recommend that you have 2 televisions to watch the games on Sunday. One of them, put it on the red zone. That way you can pay attention to the rest of the games, 5 of which directly affect the Houston Texans playoff chances. And you're probably hearing me talk about the playoffs, and you're like, what the fuck, Paul?
What's that? Playoffs? Don't talk about it. Playoffs? You kidding me? Playoffs? I just hope we can win a game. What's that?
I hope the Texans can win a game as well. And it's not a lock with Davis Mills under center. But yeah, I'm looking at playoff possibilities for the Texans on Sunday. So here's what you want to happen in the 5 games that do directly affect their AFC playoff chances. Noon, CBS. You've got the 3-6 Bengals heading to Pittsburgh to take on the 5-4 Steelers. The Steelers are the 4 seed. Bengals are barely breathing right now as the AFC's number 11. But for what it's worth, their offense has been moving the football. And it wasn't that long ago that the Bengals with Joe Flacco beat the Steelers. On a short week. Wasn't that a Thursday night football game? The Bengals were wearing the all whites. Mike Tomlin's got a lot of respect for Joe Flacco. We'll see what happens in this game. You're rooting for the Bengals. The Steelers or whoever leads the AFC North, there will be one team that makes the playoffs, but you want the messiest AFC North possible. So all these teams are beating the hell out of each other down the stretch. You want them to beat the hell out of each other. How do you get that? You get that with the Bengals win. That makes the Steelers 5-5. That makes the Bengals 4-6 with the tiebreaker over Pittsburgh, because they'll have swept them over the season. There's another AFC North game, and by that same logic, the messiest AFC North possible, so all of those teams are beating the hell out of each other down the stretch. You want, in a Ravens-Browns game, the Ravens are the AFC's 10 seed right now. The Browns are dead. You want the Browns to win. You want the Browns to do it for Cleveland. Because if you didn't know this, the Ravens used to be the Cleveland Browns. You want a Browns win. Is a Browns win possible? I mean, Lamar Jackson's back. Ravens have won 3 in a row. Texans have a tiebreaker over the Ravens because they beat them a few weeks back with Cooper Rush under center. But look at the Ravens' upcoming schedule. This is pretty damn easy. And if you're watching along on YouTube or Twitch or any of those other apps, you can see. Down the stretch, they play, after the Browns, a Jets team that looked god-awful last night. The Bengals, Steelers, Bengals again. Very good chance they're 4-1, 5-0 their next 5 games. Then they play the Patriots, at the Packers, and have a road game against the Steelers to end the year. We'll see if they can feed off of the momentum that this upcoming schedule is going to give them. But I imagine that they're going to go 4-1 over those next 4 games, and they're going to be 8-6 with 3 games to play. You want the Browns to win Sunday. You would like, if possible, the Ravens to sit out the playoffs entirely, given how they have handled you when Lamar Jackson's healthy. What are the other games that affect the Houston Texans playoffs schedule? Noon, CBS. You've got the 7-3 Chargers, who are the AFC's 5 seed, and you've got the 5-4 Jaguars, who are the AFC's 7 seed. With a win over the Titans and a Jaguars loss, you'd have the tiebreaker over the Jags right now. Who knows if it lasts, but you'd have a 3-1 division record to their 1-1 record, a better conference record at 5-2 to their 3-3, a better strength of schedule, blah, 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 blah. I think actually their conference record, the Texans, would be 4-2 with that win. Let me double check really quickly on that front. I think I screwed that up. I'm taking a look at the NFL standings. You wrote something down, but you probably had a typo. Yeah, they would be 4-2 in the conference. So 4-2 versus 3-3, better strength of schedule. They'd have all the tiebreakers. But look, if the Jaguars lose to the Chargers, I mean, that's helpful. But if the Jaguars beat the Chargers, that's not bad for you. LA would drop to 7-4. You play them late in the year. You beat them in the playoffs. Their offensive line is banged up. That's one of the wild card teams that you're going to want to overtake. The remaining schedule features the Eagles, road games against the Chiefs and Broncos, and you. Chargers, Jaguars helps you out either way. You want the Jaguars in the rearview mirror as quickly as possible. Jaguars lose is going to help you be in the playoffs potentially by the end of Sunday. Say the season were to end after Sunday wraps up and after Monday wraps up. But that's a game to keep an eye on. The outcome doesn't matter that much. 325. CBS. You got the 5-4 Chiefs against the 8-2 Broncos. You nearly beat the Broncos a couple of weeks ago with CJ Stroud out. That's a playoff matchup you want. You want the Broncos to make the playoffs. And you don't want to just overtake the Chiefs in the AFC playoff standings. You want them dead and gone forever. They are still favored to win the AFC, even though if the season ended today, they wouldn't be in the playoffs. You play them on the road later this year. Do you want to depend on that as a tiebreaker for the playoffs? Say the Broncos win the division, and it's between you and Chiefs for a wild card spot. No, you don't want that. You're going to lose probably. And then the last game that affects the Texans on Sunday, the AFC 6 seed, 6-3 Bills, who you play on Thursday, are playing the 6-3 Bucks. This isn't about the result of the game as much as it's you want the closest game possible. Overtime's preferred. You want a gassed Bills team coming here on Thursday against the defense that gave Josh Allen a lot of trouble last year. So what you want on Sunday, as follows, as quickly as I can give it. A Bengals win over the Steelers, a Browns win over the Ravens, a Broncos win over the Chiefs, Chargers win over the Jags, but if the Jags beat the Chargers, it's not bad. And the longest game possible between the Bills and the Bucks. So there you go, everybody. Ryan Lost in Texas says, Paul's a messy bitch who lives for drama. JK, LOL. Hey, Ryan Lost in Texas, go fuck yourself. Not Santa says, 11 a.m. was over 3 hours ago, Paul. Hey, Not Santa, go fuck yourself. We do it whenever we want. We don't have sponsors yet. Bring some sponsors in. Maybe I'll actually start a show on time. But we're working on new times, and the afternoon window's a little bit better. If you're watching the other stations instead of me, honestly, that is bad job by you, first of all. Insulting to me. Sure, laid off, unemployed, not a lot of prospects for a job right now. Most talented person in the market? I don't know. Paul, is that your ego talking again? Yes, it's my ego in denial talking. Fuck. Anyway, what else do we have here? More comments. Texan Picker says, hey, Paul, good to see you, bud. Good to see you, Texan Picker. See, the TikTok's being cool. Twitter's being a bunch of bitches. Gerardo, should Texans rest all starters on Sunday? They could. That would be fun, right? You want to add an extra wrinkle to that game? But, I mean, no, don't. You need to win the game. You've already got your backup quarterback in there. Remember the last time Davis Mills played the Titans? They were dressed up as the Oilers last year, and he had that scramble for a touchdown, and he basically, fell flat, just beeline deep out of the sky and broke his neck. At least it looked like he did. Woof! What's up, nickname? What's up, everybody else? Rudy Garcia says, honestly, I don't even listen to the other station since I left. Good. Good. At least in this window, because you're probably going to be listening to national radio. I have no issue with any of the people there, but, you know. Not Santa says, get your weekly reaction to Seth the Flow. The Colts are on a bye week this week. They're on a bye week. What else do we have to talk about? Are you feeling guilty? Are you feeling guilty about what you did last weekend where you probably skipped watching the Texans and Jaguars game when the Jaguars found themselves down? When the Texans found themselves down 19 points to the Jaguars? Damn. That's tough. That's not good. You know? I don't blame you for changing the channel. I don't blame you for leaving the game early if you did. But if you did, you may be entitled to some sort of compensation. Has this ever happened to you? You're watching a Texans-Jaguars game, and your backup quarterback is starting, and he throws an interception on the third play of the game, and then the other team scores, and then you're about to get the ball back, but some guy you've never heard of is returning kicks, and he fumbles it, and the other team recovers, and then they score again, and then you actually get the ball back, but your team gets called for 2 penalties, and then you drop a snap and you have to punt? And the punt gets returned for a touchdown? And even though you kick a field goal and score a touchdown to make it 20-10 at halftime, you open up the second half allowing a field goal, you turn it over on downs, and then the other team scores a touchdown, and all of a sudden you're down 19 points. It's 29-10 in the fourth quarter? And people from Jacksonville, of all cities, are starting to be mean to you?
The Jaguars run the AFC South.
And are rubbing in your face that they have a beach house that you'll probably never be able to afford?
And I was in Miami with my new beach house.
And you think you could probably have a better Sunday doing literally anything else? So you do literally anything else, but then a couple of hours later, you get a push notification on your phone and it says that your favorite team has just come back from down the most points they ever come back from down in the fourth quarter for a victory, and you don't even get to rub it in the faces of those people who were being mean to you from Jacksonville, and on top of that, you have to live with the guilt forever that you missed out on the greatest fourth quarter comeback your team's ever going to have? Forever! Yeah! Has this ever happened to you? Has that ever happened to you? Were you one of those people? Well, if you're one of those people, I mean, you're not a good sports fan. You're not a good sports fan, and I don't know how many people are familiar with the practices of the Catholic Church from back in the day. But if you stop watching that game early, you need to flagellate yourself. I'll do it for you. Wait, I actually got to hit myself. Hang on. You got to flagellate yourself somehow. Does that mean watching all of Texans Titans, even if it's a bad game like the last time we watched Texans Titans together? Yes, it means that. Because what you did was wrong. So wrong. And you have yourself to blame for that. Because you did a couple of things. First off, you committed this. An act of, what do we call it, Mr. Guy from Kingdom of Heaven?
Blasphemy!
One more time.
Blasphemy!
Third time for everybody out there.
Blasphemy!
We don't like that kind of thing. So if you stop watching that game early, that was blasphemy to your beloved Houston Texans. Ow! And on top of that, you are going forward now, much like the Arbiter in Halo 2, a heretic. You have to watch all of Texans Titans now. I don't care if it's a blowout. I don't care if the game's ugly. I don't care if the Texans are down 19 points in the fourth quarter. I don't care if you don't want to watch Davis Mills. You have to flagellate yourself. Ow! You have to do that. You have to do it. Watch the whole game through, you son of a bitch. You son of a bitch. You have to sit through it. I am your unconventional religious leader, and we're just, we're just whipping each other. Anyway, there you go. Oh, wow, my little Gregorian tune that I sang in the background for effect, it's still going. How about that? How about that? Jorge de Zamacona says, mediocrity is the Texan standard. What they need is new ownership and a new GM and a new coach. I don't know. They could be back at 500 literally on Sunday, son. Ricky Nelson says, it's the Texans. Anything is possible. Playoffs, Super Bowl? Yeah, that's right. You guys have to sit through the entire game. You don't have to watch a preseason game. Texans-Titans feels like a preseason game, but you do have to watch this, especially if you missed the last game. You got to watch this game the whole way through, okay? Do not report this as self-harm on TikTok. I know TikTok's kind of pussy when it comes to, what they allow to be shown on the air, but that actually hit that time. That actually hit. So there you go. There you go, everybody. Do you want to talk more Texans-Titans? No, the game's fucking afterthought. No one should want to think about Texans-Titans. So what I did is I talked to one of my favorites in Houston sports media. If you do not know who this guy is, I really think you're missing out because he's extremely on top of everything. He actually goes out and reports from games. He talks to players. And unlike me, where there's a lot of bullshit and theatrics and stuff, I think he's pretty matter of fact and to the point. And I feel like we got great chemistry together. I think we got to do some more collabs together. So the Rockets are 7-3, 10 games into this season. Let's talk about it with someone that I am a big fan of. Joining me right now, the hardest working man in Houston sports media, in my opinion. B-Block Podcast, part of the Rockets Collective, Locked On Rockets, In the Loop, The Drive on Sports Radio 610. One of the guys who talks into a microphone and actually goes out and talks to the people that he's supposed to. A man I have a lot of respect for. Brandon Scott, what's up, buddy? Good to see you again.
Man, I appreciate you for having me. It's always fun being on with you and getting to be a part of your shenanigans, a part of your world. My understanding is that we're going to talk some Rockets today. So I'm here to do the victory lap on everybody that said that they were acquiring a Kevin Durant that was too old, that they were mortgaging their future, that they were ruining the chemistry of the Rockets, that this was some kind of ill-fated move. I am here to dance on their grave. I am here to defecate on said takes. So let's go.
So there were that many doubters?
I feel like there were. I don't want to come on here and start off with straw man arguments or anything like that. I definitely feel like there were more people who were in support of trading for Kevin Durant, and especially people that really follow basketball and understood what Kevin Durant was doing with a Phoenix Suns team that was headed nowhere and that had no future and no direction. And the fact that the Rockets, due to their previous trades, had the Suns' future dangling right there in front of them, that this dichotomy kind of sort of created a perfect storm to go get Kevin Durant. But there were people that thought, hey, why would you trade for a guy who's our age? Probably like this guy is, and look, we might look good to be doing podcasts, but going out there at 36, 37, past the mid and into the late 30s, I get why people would have some reservations about that. And it's not like Kevin Durant doesn't have some kind of injury history to speak of that you can make valid concerns about. But when he was on the floor, the guy was still an elite basketball player. And if you're paying attention, you know that for the most part, he had been on the floor. He played through some things. He did have some injuries, but for the most part in the Phoenix days, he did play. And so to me, and also that his game aged a certain way that was different from, let's say, if Charles Barkley is in his mid 30s, or if, when Zion Williamson becomes 30 something years old, or whoever it is. Like, this is a different type of player and a different type of mid to late 30 something year old. So I think people lost sight of that and are starting to see how when you mix that in with the young core that they did not have to get rid of, the young guys that are still left over with the Rockets, that it actually does and can work.
Watching last year, I feel like any reservations would have been based in maybe saying, oh, he's not going to be happy because he's never been happy. And if you watch some of the clips of him last year where he's with the Suns, there are some games where he's just standing off to the side and you wonder if he's about to talk to somebody in the crowd about where he's playing next. And while I'm not watching as much basketball as the diehards out there, to me, it was like, okay, Ime Udoka said he wanted a closer. He does that. The Rockets couldn't score to save their life unless it was Fred VanVleet doing crazy shit against the Warriors. He can help you with that. I am surprised, and you are right, and maybe it is a straw man army of people that were like, this will never work, but what you gave up to get him too, like, oh, it's Jalen Green, who, we wish him well, but now he's dealing with a hamstring issue, always up and down. I feel like he's going to be a great sixth man somewhere someday. And with Dylan Brooks, like, hey, I had good times with Dylan Brooks, but I don't know. It's to me going into it, Brandon, I guess I was not necessarily expecting him to come out and having the games that he's having already. I thought that there maybe would be a little bit less wear and tear on him to this point, but this made so much sense.
Yeah. And I think even beyond just the base level of it being Kevin Durant and him addressing all of those needs that you just spoke to, Paul, like also the residual effect or domino effect or trickle down effect, however you want to look at it, of what that does for all the other players that, again, are left over around him. And so early in the season, they talked about this, and we see this, I think, on a nightly basis, how just changing the makeup of the team, namely with Kevin Durant, changes the spacing, the floor spacing for the Rockets in general, for whoever it is that's operating at a given moment, namely somebody like an Alperen Sengun, right, who's going to have the ball in his hands a great bit, and Amen Thompson, who obviously is going to have the ball in his hands a great bit. And of course, Kevin Durant himself, if you surround him with some shooters, or if it's, Alperen Sengun and Steven Adams, you provide some size and some ability to create second chance opportunities for you, which we know is a big part of what the Rockets do. Like, there are different, because of the change in the makeup of the team, there are different ways to attack other teams, depending on what their strengths and weaknesses are. You're not just a better team, but you're a more like diverse, or what is the versatile team is the word that I'm looking for. So it's that part too. It's what Kevin Durant brings you on an obvious surface level of just simply being Kevin Durant, but then also what it did for everybody else that, without talking down on Jalen Green and without any offense to Jalen Green, this is just something that he did not do, right? He did not provide these luxuries for his teammates. I don't think any fault of his own for not being Kevin Durant. That's just the fact of the matter.
Yeah, Durant's just a cheat code. He's like 7 feet tall and he can shoot from anywhere, and he's got pretty good handle, and he also brings defense to the table. I think Green got better with Ime Udoka. I think he deserves credit for that. And I really hope he does well at his next stop. I do think that he's going to be best just given his inconsistency as like a sixth man at some point in his career, maybe on a great team, but as one of the main pieces of a contender, I don't know. He's young, so plenty of time to figure out if that'll work. Durant's working with the Rockets, and They're 7-3 to this point after beating the Wizards on Wednesday night and Cam Whitmore. They're in 4th in the West. They're second to the Spurs, who are off to a really good start in the Southwest. Their only 2 losses, Thunder to open the year in that double overtime game. Awesome game to tip off the season. And then on top of that, they lose to the Spurs this past Friday in the NBA Cup. I'd be lying, Brandon, if I've watched a lot of these games, been in football mode, been on vacation. To this point, outside of Durant, what's impressed you the most from this team?
So I do want to point out that they lost to the Pistons as well in their second game. So they got the 3 losses. And so, I mean, we're talking about a team that started off 0-2 though, right? Like
they've won 7 of 8 since.
And they've won 7 of 8 since. And, and a big part of that was, so to your question, what's impressed me the most? In some ways, I feel like it's been Ime Udoka, even though I would submit to you that he in some ways might have cost him the game against San Antonio by, I think, I would say, excuse me, by stubbornly staying with a zone defense when, like, both against both Texas teams, the Spurs and the Mavericks, I think before that, where they kind of, they beat the Mavs, but there were times where it's like, they're beating this zone because these are professional basketball players, and this is not your Syracuse guy. This is not Syracuse, and you're not going up against Pitt. You know what I mean? Like, that's PJ Washington, all right? And you might not respect PJ Washington, but that's a real NBA basketball player, right? That's Stephon Castle or whoever the hell it is for the Spurs, right? That's Sohan. I don't know. Like, these are actual NBA players. That's Victor Wembanyama, So, like, this zone, this Mickey Mouse stuff that you're trying to do, like, like you're out there with the varsity, 6A team is insane, and so, like, I think he cost him the game, but the Spurs game specifically. But I think the change that he made after those first 2 games that they lost, Paul, the opener against OKC and then the game against the Pistons, the change that he made to put Josh Okogie in the starting lineup and to not go double big to start the game or in a more full-time role, but to make it a more complementary thing, actually helped the Rockets because Josh Okogie has been one of the surprises of the season. So I would say the thing beyond just their record and the fact that they're one of the better offenses in all of the NBA that has surprised and impressed me the most is how important Josh Okogie overall has been to their operation, because ain't nobody had that on a bingo card or a parlay or anything like that going into the season, right?
Hand up. I had no idea who the fuck that was.
Right.
Until a couple of weeks ago.
And I only know who he is because I am an NBA League Pass guy, but that's more of a me problem than an anybody else problem. Right. So, like, I'm not crediting myself for knowing who Josh Okogie was. And I'm also admitting that I did not, even knowing who he was I expecting him to be an impact player, a legitimate impact player for the Houston Rockets this year, even as somebody that has helped them win games, somebody that you can say that maybe they wouldn't have won games without. Did not have that. So there's that. And then how about this? How about the fact that Reed Shepherd over the last week or so has started to come into form, started to look a lot more like a number 3 overall pick and less like a G League player. Because, right, he was on that, that fork in the road. Like, what is this guy? Is he a borderline rotational, end of the bench, where's his warm-ups at every game type of guy who might be in the G League a time or two, at any given point? Or is he closer to, like, the guy that you selected number 3 overall and thought that you had aspirations for? He's looked more like that as of late, right? And then Tari Eason has turned into Steph Curry suddenly. Like, and I don't think that that's something that's going to be sustainable. But if you look at his 3-point numbers after starting the season in the first couple of games, like 1 for 5 or whatever it was, he's shooting an absurd clip from 3. Again, one that I don't think is sustainable, but it also does show that he is at least an improved and I mean, you say improved because he could always kind of shoot the 3, but he is a threat from 3, a viable threat from 3. that they have to respect as a defense. The opposing team has to respect as a defense. So combination of all those things, I'd say Jabari Smith has had some moments as well that have been special. And so the fact that the guys that you expect, Kevin Durant, Alperen Sengun, and Amin Thompson for the most part, and they've had a bad game here or there, but they have for the most part been the guys that you expect them. And then all of the role players around them are starring in their roles for the most part.
It has been really impressive, the shooting. I saw this from one of my favorite accounts, Steven Adams Stats. Through 9 games, the Rockets' 42.8% three-point percentage is the best 9-game start to a season in NBA history, which is a wild number to think of. And you think about, hey, Ime Udoka, he was in Boston, and is he seeing what the Celtics are doing where they're just spamming the three-point shot? Is this what they're going to be going forward? Well, if they keep hitting shots, I think you have to. It's great to see Reed Shepherd doing things that I think you drafted him to do. I don't know if Amin Thompson's recent stretch from outside is sustainable. I don't know if Alperen Sengun going from Eurobasket, where he's shooting a little more threes and now shooting a little more threes this season, I don't know if that's sustainable. I don't know if any of it's sustainable, but that has been surprising to go from where you were last year, especially at the end, where everything's just felt so difficult offensively, to, wow, you're really stretching the court in a way that I don't think anyone thought was possible, even with Kevin Durant aboard. That's been great, but it's probably not sustainable, right?
Yeah, so one of the things that we talk about on some of the podcasts that I do, like the Locked On Rockets with Jackson Gatlin or the Rockets Collective with Will and Brado, is like, and even on the B Block podcast, just, with myself, it's like, how is it real or fake? Is the Rockets being the number one offense in terms of like rating, the number one offensive rating, having the number one offensive rating in all of basketball, is that sustainable? I think it's sustainable. Is it likely? I don't think so, because there are other good offensive teams, but they don't necessarily have to be number one. I think the fact that they're capable of being number one for longer than just a flash in the pan or for a stretch, even if they're surpassed or if they're top 3 or top 5, they were not like they weren't good at all offensively last year, if we're just being frank about it. Like, just not sugarcoated. They were not a good. They were actually, Paul, especially for you as somebody who is watching football early in the basketball season, by the time you do get in basketball mode, I'm sure you want to be entertained. I'm sure you don't want a slugfest. I'm sure you don't want a basketball game that reminds you of a damn football game.
I do kind of like a little football in my basketball, for what it's worth.
Well, but think about it though. Like, imagine that being what you have to do to win. Like, it's one thing if you do like it. It's another thing if you rely on it, knowing that a better team can play its way out of it. Like,
that's a good way of looking at it.
You know what I mean? Like, even the Warriors. I think the Rockets might have actually been tougher than the Warriors, but the Warriors run sets. The Warriors have spacing, but the Warriors obviously have the greatest shooter to ever live, right? Like, they have these, and now obviously the Rockets have Kevin Durant. So like, they have these things that you kind of are prerequisites to be a successful basketball team. And what the Rockets had going for them was heart and grit and hustle and athleticism and a willingness to get in your face and fight you if they had to, right? Like, and that's all good and well, and I respected it, but you needed more than just that. So yeah, I think kind of going that tangent just to say that them, somehow maintaining that tough identity that they had already as a team, but also now being able to do the actual valuable basketball things that you need to do to win in 2025, 2026 is the reason why we see them where they are right now.
I am curious at the end of the year who will be saying improved the most. I saw you posted. I've been telling anyone who'd listen, improvement from Reed Shepherd, Jabari completely changes this team. And going into the year, I did this super long preview episode where I was taking a look back at quotes from Media Day. And I was sort of tiering the Rockets, and Durant's at the top. And then that next tier is Thompson and it's Sengun, who's going to get better over the course of the offseason. I bet on Sengun just because, hey, he had Eurobasket, and Thompson, for him to get better, feels like range is going to take a little bit of time for that to develop for him. But it can develop. After that, I had Tari Eason and Jabari Smith on the same tier as far as, like, I'm really curious between these two, who's going to improve the most this offseason. Tari's coming off an awful series against the Warriors in the playoffs. Jabari's coming off a series where we all wanted to see him more, and he played really well when he got his moments. And I had like Reed Shepherd on a tier below all of that. And it was like, hey, he's going to have to do stuff this year with Fred VanVleet out. We'll see what happens. But I guess bring it back to Jabari and to Tari specifically, who you were saying such great things about a little bit ago. Have you seen, having gone to a bunch of these games, a difference specifically in those two from where they left off last year to where they're at now?
Yeah, so Tari, let's start with Tari. He still has some of the frustrating, maddening parts about his game where he might dribble with tunnel vision, he might turn the ball over, he might have a bad pass, he might play out of control at some moments, and you want him to reel it in. But all of the good things that he does on the basketball court are things that you're willing to trade in. If you can just reel in some of that stuff, you'll trade the positives for what the negatives are. But I just feel like this season, save for those first two games, and he did have a bad game squeezed in there when they beat Milwaukee. They won the game, so it doesn't really matter as much. But he was 0 for 5 from 3. That was his one bad 3-point game since the first two games of the season. But other than that, he's been remarkable. And the fact that he's just been able to be, again, a reliable 3-point shooter on a team that desperately needed it last year and has now improved it by adding Kevin Durant and now adding an improved version of Tari Eason. I think that he's definitely somebody that is improved, maybe even independent of the Kevin Durant thing. I think he's just a better player. I think with Jabari more specifically, the Kevin Durant thing helps him both in kind of, look, he's not going to ever be Kevin Durant, and I think some people might want to kind of over romanticize what them playing together, like this whole, you remember the story, I don't know if you did, but there was a story out there, a narrative, like Jabari Smith has attached himself to Kevin Durant at the hip, and he's organized his workout schedule to mirror that of Kevin Durant so he can learn from the, look, I think that's a great idea. Okay, I'm not crapping on that idea.
But there's a ceiling to that.
But yeah, there's a ceiling and there's an implication that I think we need to be careful of not being like, hey, since this guy is 6'10", 6'11", and skinny and is attaching himself to the all-time great who's 6'11" and skinny and shoots like, that he's going to be this guy now.
You lay it out like that, though, it's very easy.
Yeah, it's like, let's not do that, though. Let's not either disrespect Kevin Durant or put undue pressure and expectation on Jabari Smith Jr. But I do think it helps and that it's a good idea and that there are things that he can learn from Kevin Durant that are valuable both in his workouts, aside from being in the game and from playing in the game with Kevin Durant. So I think that you can see whether you want to connect it to Kevin Durant or not, and I would say that there's some value in it. You can also see more aggressiveness from Jabari Smith Jr. You want to keep in mind that he did get paid in the offseason. You've seen him be a more physical player. He dunks more. Paul, this guy's first 2 years in the league, look, a Jabari Smith dunk was like a Bigfoot sighting. Like it was difficult and few and far in between to find this guy who's tall as hell dunking the basketball. Now he's going up there with a certain level of confidence and physicality and like dare. Like, I dare you to contest this dunk. I'm either going to dunk on you or you're going to foul me and I'm going to shoot free throws. Whereas he wasn't doing that before because he just wasn't physical enough. His body wasn't developed enough, hadn't spent enough time on it yet because he's such a young guy. I want to say when he came in the league, he was like the second youngest player in the league at the time. So like now that's different. And he looks like it literally looks like he went from a boy to a man, and you can see it. And so he plays like that. Okay. And then the Reed Shepherd thing, I think, is an added bonus because I think early in the season, people were kind of concerned. He didn't get the start not when they started the year and they went double big. And then when they went away from it, they didn't go to Reed Shepherd. And it's like, okay, it's going to be a thing. But you see, even for him, he's starring in his role as a secondary ball handler and playmaker and knockdown shooter, which he was on Wednesday night and has been a time or two so far this season. So all of those next tier guys that you're talking about are playing, I would say, at an ideal level and not, more importantly, maybe even I would say not outplaying their role or trying to outplay their role but starring within whatever that role is supposed to be.
I think the good thing about that too is that they're young enough where they've accepted it and they're not trying to break through the ceiling of what this team is to be more than they're right now. Now, as they get older, that's just going to change. It's natural. All these guys have big egos, and I don't fault them for it. To buy into one role all the time. No, I mean, even for us in our field, you do something for a bit, but you want to keep on climbing up that ladder. But it is great to see all of these guys off to the starts that they are and embracing that role. And I think having a guy like Ime Udoka running the show is great because he snuffed any of that bullshit out. Like the Cam Whitmore stuff last year drove me crazy. Partly because of the small vocal minority online that were acting like, why isn't he playing? Why isn't he playing? It's like, well, clearly he's like a delusional and pardon my French, a-hole when it comes to being a teammate. And listen, there's lots of those guys in sports, and you can have all the talent in the world, but I think with where this team was during the Steven Silas era, where it felt like everything was just like daycare. It's just daycare. Like someday we'll be good, but we're just holding you in preschool until you're 4 or 5 years old, and then you take on kindergarten. It's been such a change, and I like that Udoka has just laid down the law on that front, and that he didn't get stubborn, or that Rafael Stone didn't go over his head and get stubborn and say, well, this guy's so talented. And they have just got these guys, and I mean, God, they've got a lot of talent on this team, but it's great that no one's really a malcontent anymore.
Yeah, so I'm glad that you brought up Steven Silas after you brought up Cam Whitmore, because, and you tell me if you agree with this, like Cam Whitmore spiritually was a Steven Silas era player. Like he was the type of player where there was enough of an upside and talent and, raw talent and ceiling out, to just throw him out there and kind of just let him do his thing and see what it is. Like, what does this actually look like? Back in the years when you weren't really trying to win, when you weren't really trying to be competitive, but you were trying to get as much young talent. I'm talking about the Jalen Green, Kevin Porter Jr., Christian Wood days, right? Like when you were living that way, he would have been a perfect player for that team because it was an experimental type of thing.
Agreed.
You know what I mean? And so if it works out, great. And if it doesn't, he goes on about his way like he's Josh Christopher or Usman Garuba or somebody like that. And you just kind of, which is basically what they did with him. And it's no sweat off the bat. But the fact that he was drafted into the Ime Udoka era and then plays into the era, obviously the Ime Udoka era, but the era in which they start competing in the playoffs, starting with last year, and obviously the expectation that would have been if he was still on the team going into this year, man, there ain't no time for that. Like, it's time out for the bull. This ain't the Steven Silas era no more. And just like I said, spiritually, he was a Steven Silas era type of Rocket. He also feels like spiritually a Wizard. Right, like you know what I mean, like the type of dude that should be on the Wizards. Where
it does.
Like, think about it.
It's not intentionally insulting, but I mean, yeah, you're right. It's like, hey, throw the ball out. This is directionless, and we're hoping he turns into our star player.
Think about it, Paul. You and I are both young enough, but also old enough to just be like, okay, so we're in our mid to late 30s now. We have never experienced an era in our life where we really thought that the Washington Wizards were a serious contender for an NBA championship. And if we had to bet however long you think you'll live or that I'll live, okay, whatever the rest of our lives look like, would you bet that in your lifetime that the Wizards are going to ever be anything other than what it felt like they were last night when they played the Rockets?
This is such a great question.
Probably not. If you were, and look, I'm sure you placed a bet or two in your life. As a betting man, would you bet on the Wizards?
How long are the odds and how little can I put down?
That's what I'm saying. Like, I don't know. Like, I don't know if we got 40 years left in us, 50, 60. I hope it's as long as possible. But whatever it is, I don't feel good. I don't feel good about betting on the Wizards. So that feels like the perfect type of team for a Cam Whitmore type of player. And that's just what it is. Either the Wizards of today or the Rockets of 4 or 5 years ago.
Man. Yeah, that's a crazy thing to think of. I mean, where do the Wizards rank among teams in all sports as far as teams that you have close to zero faith in? Like, they've always, I mean, the John Wall era was fun.
Yeah.
But did you ever take it seriously?
No. No.
I mean, they were like the fourth best team in the East during that time.
And look, it doesn't help that they played in the era of LeBron, of LeBron, and I guess the late era of maybe some of Boston toward the end.
A little Ubuntu Celtics, yeah, a little.
Yeah, so like I mean, they played in the era of some much greater and more renowned teams and franchises, but you still ain't never thought that. Even going back to the Chris Webber days, and I know they went up against Jordan, but like nobody ever thought the Wizards and or Bullets. Please don't cancel me. That's what they were called. I promise.
That's a cooler name. Sorry.
Yeah, I think so too. But I guess
shame all the murders happened.
Yeah. We're relics in that way. Cancel culture. Back in my day, when you could say bullet and get away with it. But yeah, it's just never been a thing, and I don't think that it ever will be. And so they will continue to employ the Jordan Pooles and Cam Whitmores of the world.
Yeah, I think you're right. Bringing it back to the Rockets, it's been interesting to see the start the Spurs are off to. I didn't see this coming. I figured they would be competitive, more competitive than last year. And obviously, we saw what happened on Friday where they beat the Rockets in the NBA Cup. I guess it's not like we're watching them every single night, but where do you think that they are with just an entirely different DNA? I mean, it's not Pop anymore. It's not just Wemby. It's Castle. It's others. The rookie whose name is the Dylan Harper.
Dylan Harper, yeah.
Yeah, like it's looked good to this point. Do you buy into it, or do you think this is bullshit? This start that they're off to. Maybe they're playing ahead of their skis.
No, I'm buying into it, man. I'm buying into it. And it's always worried me and always scared me. It's why even like as a Rockets fan, somebody that like, cares about the Rockets, that I'm just so elated that Amin Thompson is not just a consolation prize that the Rockets got when they weren't able to get Wemby. Like he is more than that. And I'm happy about that, for the Rockets' sake. But that does not take away from the fact that Wemby is Wemby. Like he actually is apparently the thing that we thought he was when we first heard of him. And then, of course, when he first was drafted. And so, obviously he had the blood clot issue at the end of last year, and it kind of dampened the sophomore season. But this year has been a reminder, and a couple of teams have had some success in guarding him this year. But this year has been a reminder of just like how much of an anomaly he actually is, and just how unprecedented this is. Like, we don't really actually know what to do with this, how to evaluate it. What are we looking at? How is somebody this tall able to dribble and shoot and run and not get tired like a big guy normally would? Like he's got the stamina and characteristics of a smaller guy, but is very much clearly not a smaller guy. So so that's a problem. And then, so that's the Wemby. And look, I had somebody on one of the podcasts accuse me of glazing Wemby. And I'm like, yo, I'm too old to be glazing anybody. But have you seen the guy? Like,
he's a freak. I mean,
what do you want me to do with this thing? Okay.
Seeing him next to Şengün in the free throw, while free throw is being shot. Yeah. And like, you see Şengün leaning over and Wemby's leaning over, and like, my God, the size discrepancy. Like Şengün's a huge man. Yeah. I don't know how you can't be at the very least taken aback by just how massive he is. And I could also see why Şengün maybe gets a little bit of that big elbow that he did into him in the lane towards the end of that game when it was already done.
Hey, you got to chop a tree down, man. You're not, you can't climb it or whatever. You got to chop the tree down or whatever whenever you attack it. But so like that's the Wemby piece. But then the others that you mentioned, the Stephon Castles and what I think Dylan Harper is going to provide. Obviously, De'Aaron Fox, who dealt with injury earlier in the year, is going to factor into things as well. They're a talented team. I was listening to NBA radio. So it was SiriusXM's NBA radio. I think it was like Frankie Isola and Brian Scalabrini's morning show. I think it was. So somebody had called in and was like, man, the Spurs are they're gonna, I forget the word he used, like waltz or like basically comfortably make their way to the Western Conference Finals. And Brian Scalabrine was quick to caution him on that. Like, man, I don't think anybody is going to make it comfortably because it's that crowded and that competitive. Not even Oklahoma City, who's the favorite, should get there comfortably. It's going to be hard for whoever gets there, which I think is true. But to that caller's point, I also think that speaks to what we're seeing, how convincing it is, I should say, how convincing it is what we're seeing from the San Antonio Spurs so far. It looks real. They have a legitimate superstar. And while the guys around him are young, they are also talented. Just, kind of the way we just broke down some of the Rockets' young talent. We could do the same thing with what the Spurs got going on over there. And if they can hone in on it and channel it, not to be cliche, but like if it all comes together, as they say, that shit could be scary, and it looks like so far that shit is coming together. It is kind of scary. But it is cool, just kind of as a general point, the idea that both, even though Rockets fans hate the Spurs, the idea that the Rockets and Spurs could both be powers for years to come, and that every game that they play from now until these guys don't exist anymore, or not on the team anymore, every game that they play, whether it's in November or whether it's in March or April, every game that they play matters.
It is an interesting West. And, we didn't even talk about the Nuggets are just going to be the Nuggets as long as they got Jokic. And Doncic is off to a crazy start, too, with the Lakers. Like, they don't even have LeBron and not even a problem. Not to mention Anthony Edwards and everybody that's in the West. I mean, shit, I all this drama with the Warriors right now, I think they're going to be in the mix at the end of it, even if they're not a real title contender. It is a loaded West. So I think, he's definitely right. No one is waltzing through this. While we're taking a look at the greater West, this is something that bothers me. I don't know how you feel about this, Brandon, because you've been following Houston sports for a while. I hated the Harden era. I hated it with a passion. Aesthetically, I have no disrespect for the numbers he's put up or the ability to play in, night out during a regular season where load management is a thing, where that guy is having himself a good old time while playing in every single one of these games and then afterwards going wherever he's going afterwards. But I don't know, this popped up over the last couple of days and I bookmarked all of these posts. Here are two in particular that really drove me crazy. One of them, and I almost feel like this is rage bait, shows Harden's numbers this season in LA with the Clippers. Most overhated player of all time. Never load managed, never missed the playoffs, never wanted to stick around on a shit team to farm stats. Just goes out every single night, plays well, always elevates his teammates for 17 years. Top 5 guard of all time. That's one. Here's another. Harden has a better legacy than Kawhi in basketball. Rings be damned. Harden will be more remembered, more revered by the upcoming generation. There's value in that. I saw that and I wanted to throw this keyboard. Your thoughts, because fuck that.
Yeah. So look, I want to reiterate, you and I, who are the same, pretty much the same exact age, that we are not old people. We are not. However, there is a generational disconnect in how some of these players are viewed by younger people. Like, we grew up watching basketball in the 90s and early 2000s. And so our ethos, our basketball value system, to create a term here, is different from that of people who watched basketball after I did, or we did, right? Or who started to watch basketball after we did. You have to think about it. James Harden, who we're talking about here, is also the same age as we are. We're all all three of us are born. I can verify this. All three of us are born in the same year.
I remember Syracuse, Arizona State when I was in college. We were all in college together.
The same time. You, me, James Harden are all born in the same year. And so because of that, there is no way that James Harden could be our basketball influence, because we're the same age. We were already watching basketball by the time he became relevant. But if you were, say, in the 5th grade or the 6th grade or the 9th grade,
the formative years,
when James Harden is doing what he's doing, he had like 30 something in his first game with the Rockets, and it was like, whoa, he's better than I think even we realized. And then he turned out to actually be better than we realized, right? If that happened to you in your formative years when you were a child or when you were a teenager, you're going to view James Harden differently. And while I cannot abide, I'm on your side, I cannot abide by that. I have to, at the very least, appreciate or understand how this generation or the next generation after us can connect to James Harden in a way that, say, I did to Allen Iverson or to Tracy McGrady, who maybe today's modern day like analytics and numbers aren't necessarily as friendly to, because maybe that sort of thing wasn't valued at that time. And players who people today might say were overrated because of that. But since I was there and I was a part of the era as a teenager, I cannot unsee it or pretend like for me those guys were not great, even if the information to me now is saying something different. So, or that James Harden is better, like that's just not going to be a thing for me. So I get it, even though I would say vehemently disagree with the note. Like, he's an all-time great, but like, greater than Kawhi, who, is a finals MVP, like, are we just going to pretend like 2019 wasn't one of the more unlikely and absurd things that anybody's ever accomplished in NBA history? The run that Kawhi Leonard went on. I'm sorry, as much credit as I'll give James Harden for his career, he doesn't have that on his resume. He does not have a 2019. He never did what Kawhi Leonard did, on top of the fact that Kawhi Leonard was a part of a championship team, I'm pretty sure before that, with Spurs. So like, like that, it's just not, I'm sorry, it's not a thing, but I get why younger people are enamored and fascinated by something that captured them in their formative years.
Yeah, I'm sure, being on the Rockets collective, you get a little bit of that fresh perspective too. With Will and Brado. Brado blocked me a while ago. Whatever.
Oh,
it's fine. We I forget what happened. It was like somehow me talking about a back and forth I had with Texans commenter led to Joe jumping on Joe George jumping on him, and I got lumped in. I think I called him. I called him them the Rockets Mickey Mouse Club or something like that. It was kind of a dickish thing to say, but whatever. I am what I am. I'm an asshole.
They're young kids.
Yeah, they're young, and we're. Are we unk to them?
I don't. They don't strike me as guys who would call us unk, but just the math of it, man. They're in their early 20s and we're approaching our late 30s, so it's just different.
Is there a player that, going back to us growing up, like any team, doesn't have to be on one you grew up rooting for, that you're like, this is what I always want out of my players? Me, it was Ray Allen, because seeing all the work that he put in from a conditioning perspective, the efficiency with which he shot from outside, I felt like that guy was as scary a shooter as there's ever been. And it was a almost robotic level of dedication, commitment. And obviously everyone talks Kobe, and I get that, but for me, that was always the guy I looked at and I was like, God damn, he has absolutely maximized every little bit of his game that he possibly could.
Yeah, I think Ray Allen is a great example. I'd co-sign yours. I think honestly, prime LeBron James, peak LeBron James, like to give an obvious answer, but it's easy to kind of overlook now because he's got an old man injury. And he's annoying. I feel like nobody likes him anymore as much as you are required to respect. I think if you take the game seriously, you're required to respect what he is and what he represents to the game. But he's not really likable anymore and kind of hard to root for, which to me makes him hard to appreciate, the reason why he's the all-time leading scorer. Well, a lot of that is because obviously he started, he's the part of the last era of players who could enter into the league straight out of high school. So he started early and was great immediately. But then the peak of it is as good as, if not better than anybody's peak, and I think is the ideal built in a lab type of basketball player. One that's got these broad shoulders and is like, a force, can run you over, but also can stop on a dime and pull up and shoot a jump shot.
Yeah, he can do everything.
Yeah, and it looks weird, but you're like, shit, that went in, and he can take over a game, obviously. So I would say he would be probably him in his prime would be my ideal basketball player. I do know that, speaking of that younger generation, that Paul George is widely viewed as the ideal and quintessential basketball player. And while I also feel like I cannot be putting Paul George in a certain pantheon, I just cannot abide by it. My heart don't understand it. I can't bring myself to do it. I do understand as somebody that gets basketball and appreciates the game, what people mean when they say that, in terms of just being able to do a little bit of everything at an above average to high level. So yeah, I would reluctantly point out Paul George as a non-obvious. Like I gave you the obvious in LeBron James, and maybe Kevin Durant will fall into that. Like, newsflash, they're really good basketball players. But Paul George, if I were to kind of go outside the box a little bit, would be somebody I would kind of go with your Ray Allen theme, would be another player that's like that.
Last question. I would ask a Texas Titans question, but who gives a shit? I kind of like, I don't even want to watch the game on Sunday. But
hey, Paul, that's my favorite thing that you said since we started. I would ask a Texans Titans question, but who gives a shit? I don't even want to watch the game.
Like,
thank you.
Have you seen my post this week where I'm just fucking around, like trying to create a quarterback controversy because I'm bored? Like I just want to get to the Bills game. You know, like nothing matters until the Bills game. That's where we're at, and
I respect it.
Yeah, we'll get there when we get there. But 10 games in, they got the Blazers tonight. What's your grade for the Rockets?
Oh, well,
give me a good grade. Don't give me this bullshit where everyone's like, you know, like I've seen a lot of this recently, and obviously they're off to a 7-3 start, so you're probably going to give them a good grade. But I don't know if you've noticed this. People grading like drafts and other things these days. Have you noticed that no one gets a C anymore? It's like a B- or above. I don't know if this is a generation thing, but like C used to be satisfactory. B used to be good. A used to be great. Anyway, my rant's done. Hopefully that gave you a little bit of time to think of a grade.
Yeah. So a grade for the Rockets. I mean, I don't know how you give them anything less than an A, right? Like just at least based on, and maybe if you want to project it or think that there's going to be a regression to the mean, shout out to Mike Meltzer. Or if you think that there's going to be like, you know, some kind of letdown, or it's fool's gold, you don't believe in it. Based off of what we've seen right now, I don't know how the grade could be anything other than an A. We talked about this earlier. The stars are playing like stars by and large, with like some exceptions. You know, I think everybody has had a letdown game at some point. But by and large, as a collective, the stars are playing like stars, and the role players are starring in their role player roles. I don't know how right now, based off of what the Rockets are, how you would give them anything other than an A. They're number one in we talked about it earlier. They're number one in offensive rating. They are top like 6 or 7 in defensive rating. And that's another thing. We haven't talked about that. That in the beginning of the year, it looked like their defense was slipping a little bit. And it's like, well, wait a minute. They're known for their defense. Where's that at? Ime Udoka is, you know, they did that NBA GM survey that they do every year. And Ime Udoka was touted for his defensive schematic prowess in that survey. Where the hell's that at? And then that started to come together too, you know, and so and now it's corrected itself, and now they look much more similar. I think a little bit had to do with that damn zone that I was talking about earlier, but some of that has now corrected itself, and they're closer to the brand of defense that we expect from them. So across the board, offensively, playing your role, defensively, to me, this team right now is an A. And look, man, the Blazers, like, come on. Like, to me, I get that they're kind of they're 6-5 and they're trying, but like if you're the Rockets right now, you got to be taking care of business against the Blazers. You know, especially after, you know, what you showed you were capable of doing against an inferior opponent. Now, the Wizards are the worst team in basketball, but you know, you want to show that consistency. I'm giving them an A, and I'm expecting them to play like an A type of team when they play the Blazers on Friday.
He is the one, the only Brandon Scott. You can catch him on the B Block Podcast, Rockets Collective, Locked On Rockets, In the Loop, The Drive on Sports Radio 610. Always good to catch up. We got to do this way more because you're one of the best in town when it comes to just shooting the shit with. Thanks for stopping by, bud.
Yeah, man. You owe me a home and home now, so
let's go.
We'll get you on
on
the B Block, and we'll kind of make it a regular thing.
Sounds great.
Home and homes, me and you.
So that's Brandon Scott. Been a hot minute since the two of us have been able to catch up and do something together. I think the last time that we did something together was like 12 years ago. It was Nick Wright who put us together, actually. We did a little practice tape on the side. I don't think I even had a daily show at the time. So, big fan of Brandon. Check out the B-Block podcast. He's also on the Rockets Collective with a couple of guys who I don't think like me, but hey, like Brandon Scott. He's good on that. And, of course, on Sports Radio 610, where you're now going to hear me from time to time. So, for all I know, we might actually be working together, Brandon and I, a couple of times over the Thanksgiving and Christmas holiday. We'll keep you posted on that. Greg Todd points out it was muted. Yes, it was. I even told myself as I came back in, hey, make sure you're not muted when you start shooting the shit again. And here we are. But that's going to wrap up today's edition of the show. We have tried a couple of different times. I know I said I was going to do 11 a.m. today, and I didn't do it until 2. Apologies for that. We will do a watch party for Texans Titans on Sunday. I hope that you join me for that. We will also do a post-game live stream for Texans Titans on Sunday. And at some point during that game on Sunday, I'm going to decide whether or not we do the show Monday at 7 or we go back to doing the show at noon. I am trying to figure out a schedule that works best for me so that I can get other things done over the course of the day. When it's in the middle of the day and when it's in the afternoon, I spend way too much time over prepping for this thing. And I know people don't really want to go behind the kimono. You just want to show. But I do think the show has been a little bit longer than it needs to be. I do like hanging out with everybody just like it's the radio show. But at the same time, I've got to start looking for ways to make money. And while I'm looking for sponsors on the show, I think that the best way to do it is going to mean doing the show in the morning. I don't know if that's 7. I don't know if that's maybe even earlier at 6 or something like that. But I will keep you posted on what we do. Make sure you stop by for the watch party on Sunday. Check out the full interview with Brandon if you missed any of it on YouTube. And if you haven't, please like this video on YouTube or subscribe to the channel if you've never been to it before. Give me a follow on Twitch or a sub. Akalon says. Shout out to the Twitchers who are the most loyal audience I've got. X Akalon says pod. Follow me on both if you want to see clips and see my musings from time to time. Instagram at Sports Gallant, where you can catch shorts from the show. Same for TikTok at Gallant Says. Facebook at Paul Gallant Sports. Until Sunday for Texans Titans and what will hopefully be a more entertaining game this time around. So long, farewell, and have yourselves a wonderful weekend. Peace!